Hello, and welcome to Unexpected Advice, where we get to hear fantastic advice from unexpected sources. I'm Esther Angell, founder of Insightfully Curious Consulting, where we believe that great strategy starts actually with curiosity. Today, I'm joined by Megan Malick. Now, Megan is a licensed marriage and family therapist, as well as an ordained minister, which I love. She's written a book on grief and the practical realities that come with it. I've bought it and shared it with people. She also has 2 master's degrees and a slew of professional certifications. But as everyone knows on this show, that's not what we're going to talk about. Today, we are going to talk about the rearview mirror and making great decisions. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining today, Megan.
Thank you for having me.
Yay. This was a fun topic because you, as a therapist, you're always, and as a grief counselor, and you're helping people plan the forward. You're helping them make good decisions going forward and plan for the forward. But this topic is about like, oh, no, really, some of the best decisions you've ever made happened back there. What inspired you to come up with this topic, this piece of advice?
I've been really sitting with like, what are the things that have most helped me and how did that happen? And,
Okay.
5.5 years ago, my drinking, like many people's, escalated over the COVID time period.
What was 5.5 years ago? I don't remember. Yes.
So,
COVID.
my red wine consumption started to increase little by little to the point that our refrigerator, if anybody recalls, refrigerators were on back order for like months, died, and RBG, like the same week. And it was the weekend, and I was like, and I drank too much. I ended up getting sick. I was like 44 years old and like, ew, who does that? And yuck. And gave my husband a good fright. And so I'm one for a challenge. It was the end of September. And I was like, oh, I see this Sober October.
Yeah.
I'm going to sign up to do Sober October. And the decision that I made without knowing I was making it was that I'm now a sober person. And it's like one of the best decisions I have ever made. But if you would have asked me that September Sunday morning, was I like becoming sober? I don't think I know I wouldn't have said yes. I know I wouldn't have said yes to you.
Right.
I was just doing the next right thing.
Yes, that's important. That's important. I think sometimes we have this big, long piece that we think we have to plan out and do all the right things. And it's not all the right things. It's the next right thing.
Yeah, I just needed to do the next right thing, which meant not having red wine that night.
Well, that's one night, too. I think for people who are going through that journey. And it wasn't like this was a constant every night, like, situation. But this was something you're like, this no longer has a space in my life. And this is something we've talked about in the past.
Yep. Yeah, I was like, this is not helping me. And then because I got to have space to recognize places that I thought it was helping me, that it wasn't. I feel like this happens in life a lot. Like we're doing the thing that we think is helping us with X or Y, and it might actually be inadvertently not. I.e. for me, I used to wake up at 2:00 many nights. When I stopped drinking, that has decreased significantly.
Yeah. Right decision. But in the rearview mirror, it wasn't something you were planning on. But in the rearview mirror,
I was like, oh, look at this. Kind of collecting the like benefits in hindsight.
Why do you think this is so important for people? Like, why is this something that I should be thinking about? Like, look in the past, look at the great decisions that you've made.
I think for a couple of reasons. One, I think our past is actually filled with so much fantastic resource for us about like you're here, I'm here, right? We have survived 100% of the days we've lived. And so
yes,
how did we do that? Like what helped us be who we are? What were the successes? And so when we go back and reflect on how we became who we are, we can then use those practices, skills in becoming the next step. I also think, people think therapists are going to make you look back at what was bad or painful or wrong. And yes, that stuff can be in the past. But guess what? There's good in the past too.
Right.
And so I think, At the end of the year, I actually invite clients to do what I call the reverse bucket list. Rather than looking into the next year and getting so ahead for where they want to go, I say, well, look back and say, what have you accomplished? And not just the like big ticket items, but like, where are you showing up more for yourself? How have you stepped more into who you were meant to be? That's a rear view mirror.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Why is it important for us, like from a therapist point of view? And I have my opinion about it's important to understand who we are. So we aren't who we were. We are who we are now. But understanding how we got to where we are and the decisions that got us there and what those good decisions were. Like for me, it's even things like, and there's big decisions. Sometimes I question because there's the alternative that could have been there. I moved from Texas to Pennsylvania. Was that a good decision? That was the decision. I reflect on that decision. But to a certain extent, I can't live with the what ifs. I have to look at, I made that decision and these are the things that benefits that came out of it, such as us getting to meet. We never would have met if I hadn't left Texas.
True. Yeah.
So I love that you ask your clients to do that. Why is this so important for them? Why is this so important for us? Why is this the seminal advice that you felt like people needed to hear?
So I think and I want to be clear, right? So I'm a U.S. white middle class person. So this is not necessarily true for every single person listening out there, but for the predominant folks that are in my circle and for me, there's so much emphasis on the future. Where do you want to go? And I think slowing down to look back not only can help us get to where we want to go, but frankly, I think it helps us live in the present moment, which is, I think, the real gift.
Yeah, right.
How do I want to be here now? Because if I'm so busy thinking there about what I don't have, I'm missing what I do. And I'm missing the gifts that I gleaned from back there. And I'm not living a life of appreciation. And I'm going to say, I really believe intrinsically in my heart of hearts that we are living in a time where how we did things before is ending.
Yeah.
And I think the leadership of the future is going to be so much more about how do we be here now?
Yeah.
We're not going to be able to have, and I mean, believe me, there is a planner in me who is wailing furiously about this, wailing. But the old plans are just like, for right now, it's going to be more for right now. And so I think to be able to look back and to say, wow, look at this. I did these things that I didn't even know I did, or I made this decision and I learned all of this and I had no idea. I've worked with people who have spouses with substance use and who have said actually making the decision to do X or Y with them ended up being the best thing. I'm actually grateful that happened because it opened up blah, 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 blah. I've worked with parents of young people who are queer. And at the time, that's a really hard thing for many people.
Yeah.
But they would say, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I made the decision to learn about this, to engage. I didn't know where I was going to go. I had to let go of who I was, but I wasn't ready to tell you who I was going to become. I didn't know. I needed liminal. I needed the liminal space.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are a lot of interesting pieces. What are some ways that you suggest people do? So what is advice you would give to people who don't spend that time in that reflection? I am a forward person. If there's not forward momentum in my life, then I get anxious. But I think I love this. So what advice would you give me? What advice would you give people that we are so forward looking? What advice would you give us? This is some practical steps to how to actually do this.
Yeah. So I would say, maybe rather than do this or do that, reconsider what does forward look like.
Okay. Yeah.
So, for example, rather than in psychotherapy language, what is called a content goal, which is about the what.
Yes.
Create what's called a process goal, which is more about the how. So, for example, rather than being I am going to write 5 novels by the time that 2026 ends, I'm going to commit to writing 20 minutes a day, and I'm going to show up for myself, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to notice what happens. And a book may come out of it, and a book might not come out of it. But you know what is going to come out of it? Practice, self-trust, self-discipline, self-growth, And so
Yeah.
I would invite anyone out there, rather than being like, oh, it's either forward motion or not, to say, I'm not saying no forward. I'm saying let go of the out there and come in
Yeah.
here and focus most on what you can do. I can keep doing these things. And what have I done in the past that's helped me show up? And how do I build
Yes.
that in?
Yes, and I think that's something key. Like, and when you reflect on the positive as well. So sometimes we tend to reflect on the negative. We spend a lot of time living there. So we
Yeah.
reflect, right? Everybody say amen. When you reflect on the positive to say, that really worked well. How do I do that again? What led to that really great experience or feeling? So I, for example, had dinner and drinks with a couple of friends because I have these various groups of friends. I have a couple ladies that I got together with, and I'm so thankful. We have such a good conversation and rapport, and I'm thankful for the people that I've had in my life to have that rapport. And sometimes I think I take for granted that I have different circles. Like, all my circles should be together. We should be one happy family. And I'm realizing that that's not always the case, and that's okay. It's okay to have different groups that serve different purposes in your life. And part of what makes that group so exceptional is that group. So who we are as a group as opposed to who we are as the whole. So those are things that I've kind of learned to reflect on. Like, why is that? Why do we have such a good time? Like, why does that work? And when I try to do other things, it doesn't work. I'm realizing, well, it's because the group in the whole is something that's really great in itself. And it doesn't have to be a part of a bigger group or a bigger thing. It can just be what it is. And that's okay.
Yes, it is. Right. And so when I hear you say that, what I hear is self-compassion, compassion for the other, acceptance for the reality of what it is, a curiosity and an inner flexibility that to me sounds like emotional maturity.
Well, that's good because we get to the whole perimenopause and I'm like, oh, Lord, here we go.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, I mean, that's a whole other, or I mean, it kind of fits with all the different kinds of things. But yeah. But I guess I say all that to say, I think I won't put this on anybody else, but when I get so eye on the prize, goal oriented, I'm not those things. I'm not compassionate with myself or others. I am not emotionally, mentally flexible. I become rigid.
Yeah. Yes, because you're so focused on that thing and the steps that you think you have to get there. And I think reflecting on the past, so there's also joy that comes from that, right?
Yes.
There's joy that comes from revisiting those really great childhood memories, like nostalgia. There's nothing wrong with nostalgia and why that was really fun, right?
No. Or like, oh, wait a second. Speaking of perimenopause and feeling like my inner 13-year-old rears her head in completely unexpected moments, but also being like, oh my gosh, my 13-year-old has some real wisdom. Like, and some real vibrancy and some real potency.
Yes. And genuine, like, authenticity, right? Because there's so much, there's big emotions. I don't know how you were. I was never a big emotion. I've got a daughter who's a big emotion person. And so I see that, like, but sometimes you're really authentic then. This is truly how I feel. Like, it's forcing you to tap into, I really feel this way, and this is why I feel this way, and accepting, or saying I want to feel differently.
All of that being true. And so I think kind of looking back allows us to do that and then maybe let ourselves off the hook where we can bring forward what's good and release what's not. So we're not inadvertently lugging a whole, I said the rear view mirror. So with the car analogy, I think the other piece is we can bring stuff with us when we think we've moved past it, but it's not. It's just like packed in these bags in the trunk of our car and weighing us down.
This is true. Well, I think the rearview mirror is important. Now, you can't drive forward in a rearview mirror, but that rearview mirror reveals so many great things of where you've been, not just the negative things. Can also shift your destination. Oh, I want to go back there.
Yes. All of those things. All of that. No, you should not drive staring into the rearview mirror. Just glance back.
No. What does that process look like for you? Because I think that sometimes hearing how that process works for other people helps folks like me come up with new ideas on how to reflect.
Yeah. So I've actually been sitting with this a lot recently in that, when my parents Well, my mom first, and then my dad became ill. My mother died completely unexpectedly, and my father
Oh,
became terminally ill about 3 weeks after mom
oh, wow.
died.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I was making decisions on the fly as the oldest daughter.
Yeah.
I didn't have the luxury
Right.
to mine the past, if you will, in that
Okay.
time period.
Right. Because stuff just has to happen.
I was so in the moment and the decisions needing to be made and like just everything
Yeah.
related, healthcare, as well as
Mm.
logistics, as well as my family, as well as like all the things that go with life. That
Yeah.
is how it is. Anyway, all of this is to say, when I was ready to rebuild my practice, I kept going, but I decreased my workload to about part-time, and I was ready to re-up, like bring back into full-time. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't do it like this anymore. Like, I'm not the same person.
Okay. Okay.
Talk about an uncomfortable
Yeah.
moment to have with yourself. Therapist, therapize thyself. And so I spent a lot of 2024 with my own self looking back. Who was I? How did I get here? And I use a quilting analogy with people. My mother was a quilter. And so she would like play around with all these fabrics, and I'm not a quilter. But I was always fascinated by how like she could find ways to piece things that I would be like, are you going to you're going to make that with that? And then it would be beautiful. I mean, she was a gifted and beautiful quilter, and her quilts had meaning and the fabrics connected. And so I started to think about how I was at this stage of like, I'm reorganizing my quilt. Like, and I get to decide how I want to rearrange it, what kind of fabrics I want to use. Are there fabrics that I'm like, you know what?
I'm done.
You were great in the earlier iteration of this quilt. And in the next version, you don't get to come into it.
Right.
And so, for people who are working through it, it's, first becoming aware, like,
right.
This is what this is.
Right.
And then it's moving into a kind of an acknowledging, accepting. Some people don't like the word accept. And I don't mean when I say that, like, you have to like approve. I just mean like, oh, this is the reality
if it's in
of
the
what
past,
it is.
Yeah. If it's in the past, that is something that happened.
That is in the past. And so I'm looking at that, and that past has led to this here. And I can't make that be different. Right. So, but in grief work, we talk about bargaining. And that's often trying to make the past be what the past wasn't when we're bargaining.
Yes, yes. And it is what it is. I think there's a level of acceptance, exactly what you said there, of just it is what it is. You can choose whether that was a thing that you want to repeat or not repeat. I think that's really valid, right? To say, wow, that was a really good decision. Maybe even if it was hard, like I reflect on things that are kind of agnostic in, let's say, my move. What were the consequences, intended or otherwise, of moving, good or bad? I get to put value on that, but it's important to reflect. I think too, when we talk about this in the advice to people, it's a pausing. So you've talked about like we talked about the action, but there is actually a point in time where you do have to stop and you do have to think about it. You do have to like actually take a hot minute and reflect.
And reflect. And I call that process holy listening.
Okay.
It's like turning inward and listening to what is there. And then it becomes a lot of being with yourself as you're looking back, but also being in the moment of like, what's filling me? What's depleting me? How was this? What can come forward? And so it can look like externally like you're not doing a lot, but like the trees in a deciduous forest in the winter, there is so much happening on the inside that it leads to a new way of being. And your actions end up being different.
Yes. And sometimes I think we find our place. Like I don't know if have you ever been in this situation where you're realizing you something changed? You like a different thing that you didn't know that you liked, or you like enjoy a habit that you didn't enjoy in the past. And I think I'd like to reflect sometimes and be like, oh, when did that start? Like, I did the thing. That was good. I remember. So I talk about this a lot. And I've mentioned it probably a few times. In one of my other podcasts, I had my husband's cousin's wife who was in the military. She's a military wife. She wasn't in, her husband was military wife. And she says, Esther, you just invite people over. Nobody cares that you have boxes in your living room. They know you just moved there. Invite your neighbors over and get to know people. And I took that advice. And I reflect on that regularly to the point where it affects how I show up sometimes now, because you know what? Just put yourself out there, be authentic. Here's the thing. If people do care that the boxes are in your living room, maybe there's not the people that you want in your life, you know? And the ones who don't care, they're the ones that are hanging out. They're the fun ones.
Yep. Yep. No, for what it's worth. I mean, I remember, people say all kinds of things when you say you're not drinking. Like, it's
Sure.
very fascinating to watch how people react, what they say, what they assume. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
And so, learning to not take things personally and boundary setting are really an important part of the sobriety journey, or at least they were for me. That became part of my grief journey because I needed the same thing.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And so it was like, this is really very fascinating.
Yeah, to reflect on it and see how it got you there. And then it allows you as well, I think, finding those things like, that was a great decision. Look at me go. And sometimes I do that with my husband. Like, we'll both, because it's also good, I would say, do self-reflection there, but you can reflect for other people. You can tell people, like, please take a minute and tell the one people you, like, that was a really good decision. I'm really glad you did that.
I think sometimes people outside of us will see those things more clearly. I mean, it's to say, when you're in it, you're in it.
Right.
It's helpful to have somebody outside be like, do you get what a big deal this
was?
Is? And to be like, no, I just did the thing. And it's like, oh, wait a second. I wouldn't before. I've just done this thing.
Yes. But you did it and it's really cool.
But I'm doing it now, and it's really cool. Couples and families do this too, where it's like, oh, wait a second, we would have normally fought about this. I'm not happy about it, but I'm going to choose to be a little bit different with it.
Yeah, right. Yes, I love that. I am curious too, because this is kind of leaning into the expected advice, but what advice would you have for people who are in a dark space, who are not feeling positive about themselves and reflecting, spending a lot of time reflecting on the bad decisions? What advice would you give to help pull out of
that?
Yes, to be able to find the good decisions in what seems like a mountain of bad ones.
Yeah. Well, okay. First, I feel like I need to say, if you are really in that space and are working to get yourself out of it and are struggling, please reach out to somebody to support you with that process. That is why there are paid people there to help you do that and walk along that journey with you.
Right.
I feel like that's just my have to say that. Not have to,
Thank
but
you.
I believe it. I believe it wholeheartedly.
100%.
So that said, stopping and simply noticing like, oh my gosh, I'm focusing on all of this. And then for those of us who are brain nerds out there, me, our brain is pre-programmed to focus on the negative things because for the predominant human history, how we have survived as a species by not getting eaten by tigers or mauled by bears is by clicking those negative things and avoiding them. Right. So if you're having that, know that your brain is doing a completely normal and natural thing, and changing is possible. So what you're going to be needing to do is what's called rewiring your neural network, which is steady work of just noticing this. And it's almost like when you need to have your dog or your cat drop their toy, drop the thing and come over to the positive thing.
Yes.
And or if you can access in your body a felt sense that feels good. Noticing what around you is neutral even. Getting in some sunlight, having some water, getting some movement. And if you have friends or family or people that love you, have them tell you. Have them remind you of you.
Yes. I
Remind
love it.
you of you. And then this is another thing that has actually become like, put a playlist together of songs that feel good and move
I
to
love
them.
this.
Dance to
Yes.
them. Put them on. Like, allow your body to get the felt sense of the change.
That's really fantastic advice. That is, allow your body to get the felt sense of change, because sometimes that change happens all up here and we need it to take physically place. So there's changes that have to, whether it's what you wear or where you go, something shifting that in the physical realm helps anchor it as well.
Yes. Yes.
I love that
And I
advice.
mean, like, literally just notice, like, if it can feel like a smidge better, like, where is it a smidge? Getting fresh air, getting sunlight, putting on, whatever song
Yes.
it might be.
I am a full advocate of like when you're trying to go climb Mount Everest. I had another conversation like this. When you're climbing Mount Everest, don't worry about taking the first 1,000 step. Take the first step.
Take the
Right?
first step.
What's the smallest
Yep.
step that you can get to move in the right direction? The smallest. Because once you anchor on that, once you have that success, finding the next step is a little easier and the next step's a little easier. It's the small, repetitive. And you said it. It was like, oh, Sober October. It's not, oh, I'm going to spend the rest of my life not having red wine. It's, I'm not going to spend today having red wine. And that seems much more accomplishable when there's the world out there that
It was
seems big.
way more accomplishable.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just did the day.
And then tomorrow's another day. Worry about that day when it
Yeah.
gets there.
And then focusing on, how do I make this the most wonderful, best day that I can make that? And if you're in a really hard place, your
Yeah.
version of a wonderful day is probably going to be a little different than what you thought. And are there a few things that you can hold on to, whether that be the petting of your dog or your cat, the smell of the cup of coffee in the morning, the feeling of the water running over your hands, or taking a shower, and just noticing those simple things. And
Yeah.
you can take this, I read this last week, that the word hope stands for hold on, pain ends.
Yeah.
Hold on, pain ends. It does.
This too shall pass.
This too shall pass.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Megan, for all of this time. Also,
You're welcome.
you're welcome. I would love to get some expected advice from you. So,
Ah!
yes, I have a question for you. You wrote
Oh,
this
go.
you wrote this really great book on grief and the practicalities that come with it, and that's what I loved. It's actually a workbook. So for those who are interested, we'll keep that we'll put it in the description of this podcast, so you can check it out if you need it, or if you know someone who could use it.
Who does?
So what advice would you give besides, like, okay, this is a good book to help you through that, but what kind of motivated you to write that book, and what pieces of advice would you give to people that would probably need the book, whether they are motivated to buy it or not? That's fine, but like, what advice would you give for people walking through that grief journey? I mean, there's a lot. Like, this is a huge one, so I'm
I'm just
setting you up,
pausing
but-
for a second. Well, I wrote the book, I would say, geez, I didn't piece this. Therapize thyself. So this is going to come back full circle to the title, Your Best Decisions Are Made in the Rearview Mirror. The first iteration of this book was not to be a book.
Mm-hmm.
The first iteration of this book was a Google Doc, because a year after I went through my experience, my best friend from childhood, my husband's best friend from childhood, and one of our closest local friends were all losing parents. And our friend who was local lost both her mom and her dad in very quick succession. And I had this weirdo knowledge, not just of grief, but of like all the crap and the decisions that families have to make. But I was still in the throes of a lot myself. So I wasn't able to go and help out like I would normally.
Mm-hmm.
So I started to write, like, here's what I would have told me of last year, basically.
Right.
And here's what I did.
Right.
And the feedback was, this is really good. You should do something with this. And the Google Doc grew, and the Google Doc got shared, and the Google Doc grew, and
Okay.
it became a book.
Right.
So, you know, a lot of people get through their grief journey and they write their story. And I have a story and I may publish it someday. But who I am as a person has never been somebody to get through something and say, now I want you to know all about me. Who I've been. Ooh. I have been the person that's gotten through the hard thing and wanted to help lead you through it.
Yeah.
I want your time to be easier than my time. I am not the person that goes through the hazing experience and says, I want to haze you worse than I had it. I go through the hazing experience and I'm like, what the F was that? How do we not do this to the next generation?
Right.
So I wrote the book I wish I would have had, and it's practical because what I needed was practical, and what I needed was a workbook and a way to break things down into each step at a time.
Right. Yes. So
I added the grief stuff because I knew that and that helped me, but I knew most people didn't have it. So I put that in.
I think that breaking it down into those next steps for people going through that grief journey, like you said, hope that the pain's going to end. It's a through, not over, but it's, there's a step, there's a next step and a next step, and break it down. Don't try to do it all at once because it's overwhelming. Because you're going through the emotional and then you have to go through the physical, you know, process at the same time.
It is. And so it's a lot of letting go of that big picture end goal and coming back and being in the minute.
Yes.
Breaking it into small steps and looking back at other times in your life that you maybe were like, oh, this is really rough. How can that be a resource for you now?
Right. Right. Yeah. That's good advice. Well, thank you. Thank you, Megan, so much for coming on the show, for sharing everything. It was really fabulous chatting with you. And I'm excited and thankful that I have you in my life.
Same, Esther. This was wonderful. Geez, you're very good getting me to teary up myself. I'm usually the one that gets other people to do that.
I made the therapist cry. All right. Well, thank you so much.